Today we are going to remove the instrument cluster cover on the Generation 1 KLR 650. The tools you'll need for this job are a number 3 Phillips, a number 2 Phillips, a 00 Phillips, a 8mm socket, 10mm socket, and a ratchet with an extension. First thing you're going to want to do is take off your front shroud here. These are technically number 2 Phillips bolts, screws, but I use number 3 because it's harder to let them strip. Get a better grip on them, especially when they're already partially stripped. So you take them off, set them aside. Then there's also one right down here at the front. It's the same as the others. Next you want to come around behind the windshield, and you got 2 bolts in there. You got the one up here for the headlight shroud, and then you got the one further down on the frame, or the metal part that actually holds the front fascia on. So I find it easier to move the handlebars straight ahead. What you want to do is get a 10mm socket with an extension. Get in there and undo it. There's the bolt. And then you're going to come around to the other side and do the same thing. Make sure to hold the front face shield in place, because this is the last bolt holding it on. Once you get it loose enough, hold it by hand, and then it's free to slide out of the way. Be careful because your turn signal lights will still be connected. Next, you're going to want to take off 2 more number 3 Phillips screws underneath the instrument cluster. This is the housing that covers the electrical connections on the harness. You'll find one up at the back here, and another one on the other side behind the speedometer cable. Once you take those off, this plastic piece comes off, and then we have more access to the bottom of the instrument cluster. Next, we have access to these 2 bolts here underneath the instrument cluster. They are 8mm, so we got a socket with an extension, and carefully go around your electrical connectors and undo them. You'll take off a nut and a washer, so carefully you don't lose anything. Do the same thing on the other side. You may need to take off a connector for this. With the wires out of the way now, we can take off that nut. Again, be careful not to lose the washer. Now that those bolts are free, carefully grab the instrument cluster with both hands and wiggle it up and out of the rubber grommets. We now have access to the underside. On the underside of the cluster, you're going to see 3 silver screws. One here, and then one way back in there. It's the silver ones you're looking for. Got a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, and undo these 3 screws. One, it may be easier to take off the speedometer cable, but I didn't feel like doing that. If you opt not to remove the speedometer cable, you may find it easier to pull the cluster up and away to get at this last screw. It's into plastic, and they're self-tapping, pretty sure. So you're going to want to go slow and be careful not to strip it. On the very end of the trip odometer reset knob, there's a little Phillips screw. You're going to want to get either an eyeglass repair screwdriver or some kind of technical little screwdriver. I have best luck with Phillips 00. I'm going to hold the knob and put pressure on the screw while undoing it. And that should just pop out. And now that that is off, we grab the instrument cluster with both hands and we very easily lift off the top. You now have access to the instrument cluster itself. In here are your neutral, high beam, and turn signal lights. For the neutral and the turn signal lights, if that's what they're, yeah, neutral and turn signal, they are a T5 or I think it's 47, I'll double check that. T5 bulb that you have to pull out from this side here. The high beam indicator is a standard 194, I believe it is, and then its rubber grommet can be pulled out from the back to replace it. Then you just pull out the bulb and it's right there. You can get these you can get all these bulbs at standard auto parts stores. It just goes back in there and back in here. Theoretically, you should be able to replace these smaller ones here by just pulling out the rubber on the back, but they have a pretty good flange on the inside, so I didn't want to risk breaking the wires or anything. So just get some tweezers with some paper towel or something wrapped around them, pull them out like that. They're just wedges like this one, so you should be able to pull them out like that. Now, if your goal is to replace the instrument cluster lights themselves that light up the dials, they can be accessed without taking off the front cover by pulling off these 3 rubber grommets on the back. Carefully grab the rubber and pry in there either with your fingernail or a blunt screwdriver, flat, and then you can pull it out like that and then pull out the bulb. They're standard Welch bulbs. The number on this one is 158, but I'm pretty sure the standard number is 194. I will double check that and you'll see on the screen what the actual number is. You can either get incandescent or LED. Just pop it back in there and wedge it back in there. So again, it's this one here, this one, and this one. The 3 rubber grommets on the top of the panel are the instrument cluster lights. They can be accessed without taking off the black cover on the front. If you have a hard time getting the rubber back in, you can use a little bit of dish soap around the rubber or just a bit of saliva. Just wet it down a bit. And it should, with some wiggling, just pop right back in place. So yeah, that's how you remove the instrument cluster on a KLR 650 first generation.